welcome to Mass 911 Justice. Our Mass 911 Justice podcast covers topics of interest, allowing deep dives into complex issues and creating opportunities for engaging storytelling, expert interviews, case studies, and personal narratives of those affected by injustice. Justice encompasses many areas, including legal rights, social equity, human rights, and criminal reform. Here at Mass 911 Justice, we offer ample material for exploration with a focus on justice that provides a wide range of thought provoking, impactful, and relevant topics. All topics can be paired with action oriented discussions and how listeners can get involved, advocate for change, or understand the nuances of justice in a modern context, focusing on criminal and housing issues within the context of podcasting opens up a wealth of compelling and socially relevant topics that gets into issues such as equality, access, economic disparities, racial injustice, and human rights. Go nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep on listening here on Mass Man and Justice. Today, on Mass 911 Justice, we will bring to you a story that rewrites everything you think you know about second chances. For 22 years, she lived behind bars, not 22 months, not 22 days. 2 decades and 2 years of her life defined by a number, a conviction, a system designed to forget her name. But here's what the system didn't count on: a refusal to be forgotten. Today, Queen Shahmia is an entrepreneur, a business owner, a job creator, a living, breathing testament of what happens when resilience meets opportunity. And when one woman decides that her past will not rewrite her future. She's navigated legal barriers that stop most returning citizens cold. She's faced down employment discrimination, housing instability, and the quiet judgment of a world that rarely asks who you have become, only what you have done. And still, she built something. In this conversation, we go beyond the headlines. We talk about the identity shift from incarcerated person to CEO, the mental health toll of re entry, the family relationships lost and rebuilt, and the unshakable belief that your worst chapter doesn't have to be your final one. Whether you're here for the entrepreneurship insights, the criminal justice reality check, or simply a story of human transformation that defies the odds, this one's for you. I'm Dr. Empress Rose Green, and this is One Mass 911 Justice. We'll be right back with Queen Shemaya. Go nowhere. I will hold you no longer because guess what? Queen Shemaya is currently in studio. Oh my gosh. Queen Shemaya, how are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. Glad to be here.
I'm telling you,
Yes.
I just could not wait for this interview because I have so many questions, and I hope that the time allows me to ask all the questions that I have, for you today. But I'm looking so forward because I love the energy that you brings as well before I even get into the interview. That is something for me, by the way. And I love that I can feel an energy from you that just displays kindness and warmth as well. Hmm.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, yes, yes.
No,
The time that you had in there and when you first got incarcerated, how did you handle that with the reality? Um, it just creeped upon you, I would think, and now you had to face a certain reality in terms of life and balance itself, and being in a new place where you're getting, you're not used to those persons, and these are new people around you as well on a from a everyday perspective.
mhm. Well, it really all comes down to this of who you are, what you're made of, and what strengths you're able to pull out.
Hmm.
Because jail and prison is designed to do one thing, and that's break you.
That's true.
That's the whole point of it. And so either you're going to be afraid of where you are, or you're going to stand fully in who you are.
Hmm.
That's what makes the difference.
Mm-mm. I love
And
that.
thank you.
I,
I
uh,
I had never been in any kind of incarcerated experience. I had never worn handcuffs.
mhm.
I had never had a traffic ticket. Okay. So I had nothing to compare this to. But when I was in solitary confinement for 298 days,
Mhm.
because they feared I would take over the jail, and I simply I had to get still and be who I am. It's you don't if you can hold true to who you are in any situation, because there's a lot of people doing time that
Yes,
have never been to jail.
that's true.
There's a lot. And if you can hold true
Mhm.
to you,
Yes.
you can overcome many, many things.
Right. Wow.
Mhm.
That's true. That's true. Um, you know, let's talk about how did you get there? How did you?
I had a following,
Mhm.
and I I teach and I guide, and I have attracted many followers various places that I would go.
Mhm.
And there are three of mine who committed robberies to bring me a gift. And since I had been offered many gifts in my life because of who I am and what I do and the help that I give people, it was not strange at all to me to be offered gifts.
That's true.
But when the police arrived where we were staying in the middle of the night, right after New Year's, the year 2000,
Mhm.
okay? And they said that they had come in because three of mine had been arrested for robbery. And I asked them what was going on. And I said, well, I was just brought a gift. There was only $1,328 involved. And I returned it,
Mhm.
thinking that it was over with.
Right.
That was it. I took responsibility for my household, and that was only the beginning.
Hmm.
They didn't they didn't care anything about the money because it was such a small number.
Mm.
What they cared about is when the people started rioting over me and making free the queen signs in a city that nobody knew me. And so that's what really started the whole fear and scare tactic that they put over the people. And I was a dangerous cult leader since Charles Manson. There
Mm.
was no violence, no one was harmed, no one was killed. No, it was nothing like that. And the money was returned.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Now,
Yes, ma'am.
from a legal perspective,
Yes.
myself here on the Mass 911 podcast, but for more importantly for yourself,
Yes.
as the person who have been incarcerated, so many times we see the crime and we see the time that does not fit the crime. Do you think for
Yes.
yourself that, whatever their claims are that you did, that the time really fit this crime that they are alleging, are alleged?
That is that is a great question. And there were women in prison for murder doing less time than I was. And this was my first offense. The time by no means matched me taking responsibility for crimes that I did not commit.
Hmm.
And I was at first facing 85 years.
85 years.
I was facing 85 years, locked in a cell where I could not tell if it was day or night, kept away from everyone. The rec yard had to be cleared before I could step out onto it because not only was I a leader, not only was I followed absolutely, but I had the nerve to not only be a woman, but to be a black woman.
Mm. And that's already a crime, right? Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So, and it was such an experience. And this is going to sound very, very odd,
Hmm.
but an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything.
I always say to individuals as well is that, I wouldn't trade anything for where I am right now in my life, because I do believe that every day is a lesson. Yeah, I look
Exactly.
at life as a lesson, and
Yeah,
if you are, put yourself in that position to learn from those lessons, they will not repeat themselves over time, but you will learn how to position
exactly.
yourself as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
very true.
Well, I mean,
Very, very true.
for I would say for the remainder of the interview itself, and because I know that
Yes,
it's a very emotional subject as well, but for the remainder of the interview itself, we just do not want to focus on what exactly has happened. It's important as well. And
yes,
it's important for the persons who will listen to this interview that they know that no matter what it is that you have encountered within your life, that it is
yes.
that you can always rise above it. So let's take a shift for a minute.
Okay,
Still a little bit about background, but now we're going to focus on background and the journey itself. You
okay.
are an entrepreneur. Um, so would you like to, tell the listening audience just what it is that you're doing these days in terms of, for yourself?
Well, mine is a very unusual kind of a journey
Mm-hmm.
because my job is in being who I am. And everywhere that we go,
Mm-hmm.
there are those who come to me with different needs, questions, problems, pain, all different kinds of things. And I do what it is that I am able to do, and that is give comfort, give guidance, give protection, give understanding, and all manner of things. And I have been offered very generous gifts in return for this.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
what?
that is, mhm,
No, no, continue, continue.
yes. So I don't have any kind of job that society would prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
I have the life of being who I am. And while I was in prison, there were so many women with so many needs. It was just astounding how many broken women are there.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the amount of time I was facing, I did time in the lifers dorms. And that's just a whole different perspective. But I began taking care of me while in prison. I was an artist,
Mm-hmm.
and did a lot of portraits, and things like that. I could have you on paper in like 10 minutes. And I was able to take great care of myself because of my ability and my art.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Art.
And
Art.
so even,
Mhm.
yes. So even in prison, I was supporting myself. And there was 3.5 years where I was taken care of absolutely. And then the other 18 and a half, that was on me. And so I would also like to say on this particular subject that to the women and men out there who have an ability or who have a talent, a dream, however it is, that you can begin right from where you are and create a world that you can be happy with and that you can take care of yourself in.
What was the most surprising challenge you faced when re-entering society, and how did you overcome it?
You would be amazed at how little that affected me. I never bowed down to the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have to untangle myself from it when I came out. And it was so glorious to see all of the colors and life and just I really didn't have any hang-ups. I didn't have any hang-ups about being in prison, and I had no hang-ups about coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But many, many have a problem with it only because, Rose, they are completely focused on what they fear others will think of them,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's public or family. And that's what gives them so much insecurity and discomfort about being out, is the fear of what will people think. And I just didn't have that.
Mm-mm-mm. Wow.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a lot of it.
Yes. Now, as we talk about background and entrepreneurship, what
Yeah.
advantages, do you believe your background give you for the position that you're currently in, and
Yes.
in terms of what others might not have?
Okay, well, my parents learned that I was gifted from a very early age, and I started leading adults at the age of 4. And so they knew that I was a very different kind of child. And though they didn't speak much about it, they respected it absolutely. And that helped tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's a big part of the backdrop of my childhood was I had the belief and the respect of my parents.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think that, in terms of parenting, that is so important when
Oh,
you
it
have
is.
parents that actually are standing behind persons who are incarcerated.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's the person that that's the first person who was able to who birth you, and
Yes.
created a relationship with you as well. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I absolutely did not have the support of my parents once I stepped into the prison system.
You did not,
I did not have their support whatsoever.
but after
But
a while, you would say you did.
no, no,
Oh,
no, 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 absolutely not. Growing up,
mm-hmm.
I had it.
You did.
But then they just couldn't understand it. They could not wrap their mind around how their sunshine was in jail facing all this time, going to prison,
Mm-hmm.
and they just did not accept it.
They did not accept
But
it.
no, but I'm going to speak this next part very, very carefully. I did not require
Mm-hmm.
my parents' support
Yes.
to stand. And this is to those going through things who don't have that kind of support. You can do it just fine and oftentimes even better when you're not trying to please those who knew you or know you. Sometimes you have to make a stand that you're going to have to do alone.
That's true.
And that, yes, and that's when the good stuff comes out.
I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you.
I tell you, you are a firecracker. You are a firecracker, and you speak with so much. I have so much admiration for your passion. You can hear it through the dialogue that we're having. How passionate you are, and the subjects themselves. Like I say, it can be quite emotional as well. Well, to the listeners as well, as we talk
Mm-hmm.
about, as I listen to you and you talk about, art and being incarcerated and being attached to art, and we talk about also re-entering society. Art plays a
Yes.
transformative and often under-recognized role in the lives of incarcerated individuals, serving not just as a pastime but as a critical tool for survival, identity
Yes.
preservation, and successful re-entry as well. For
Yes.
myself, thinking about the subject as well, and as it pertains to psychological and emotional survival, we talk about
Mm-hmm.
persons who are actually still processing trauma. There are many incarcerated individuals who have experienced significant trauma before
Oh
and
my,
even
oh my
during
goodness, yes.
incarceration. And when we
Yes.
talk about art, art provides a nonverbal outlet to process pain, grief,
Mm-hmm.
and even
Yes.
anger that traditional therapy or prison programming may not reach.
Yes.
There's also the
Yes.
emotional regulation as well, where creating art activates the what is it, the parasympathetic nervous system, which reduces stress, anxiety, and
Yes.
aggression. So
Yes.
for environments where emotional vitality can be dangerous, art becomes a
Mm-hmm.
survival mechanism. So for myself, just listening to the way that you are able to use art as even to combat that isolation, solitary
Mm-hmm.
confinement, and long-term incarceration of 22 years that can erode your mental health. How have you kept track with your mental health and stabilizing it, I may say?
It's a very, very important question. Thank you for asking it. Because the mental and emotional aspect is such a huge thing in prison. You have a lot of prisoners who want to stay high. And
Hmm.
so they get on all kinds of mood stabilizers and psychotropics and such. And so they don't have to feel it. And that's a horrible way
Yes.
to try to cope.
Yes.
Dope is never a coping skill. It is just not a coping skill.
Mm.
But to your perspective, okay, perspective is everything. Life is 1/10 of what happens and 9/10 of how you deal with what happens.
Yes.
Okay. Because in every life, a little rain must fall, my mom used to tell me. And how I saw it was, okay, here I am.
Hmm.
I'm in a situation facing all this time.
Right.
And I could either just pity party to death, okay,
Hmm.
and and choose misery, choose bitterness, choose to blame because I had committed no crime. I took responsibility for my household, okay?
Hmm.
And so I was not doing time for something that I had done. Okay, but I was doing time and going through this because this is where my path led, and there were so many women with so many needs, okay?
Yes.
Now, before this happened, I was absolutely worshiped and adored as the queen and followed and trusted and believed in and all of these things. Now, I did not know that I would be taking all of that to prison, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue. But if you're strong for a reason.
That's correct.
It's not for decorations, okay?
Right.
You're, yes, you're strong to help someone else who does not have what you have.
Right.
And it was thought that because I had been separated from my people and the beautiful gowns and all of the luxury and da 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 da,
Mm-hmm.
that I would fall, and the officers had a bet that I would not last a week because I was housed with the criminally insane. It
Oh.
was a design to break me. They put me on suicide watch, just knowing that they would break me. But my my strength wasn't caught up in material possessions.
Yes.
My strength is in the marrow of my bones. Okay, so that was not, I said, oh, so you think that I'm going to break because I don't have silk gowns and servants? I said, oh, wow. That's called icing. That's
Wow.
the icing on the cake.
Wow. Wow.
And so prison strips you of everything. When you go to jail, you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely stripped of everything, including your underwear, if they're the wrong color. Okay? You're going to have to step out of everything. So all that's left, my dear, is what you're made of.
Mm. Are
That's all that's left.
are you involved in any advocacy or programs supporting reentry and
Uh,
you programs?
I am not.
You're not.
Nope. Nope.
Mm. Wow.
I am not against being part of such.
Yes.
I I was part of reentry while the last year or two that I was in prison, and I would prepare girls to go back to the outside to step back into their life.
Mm-hmm.
So I offered a lot of assistance with that,
Yes.
but not out here. I haven't. No.
What keeps Queen Shahmia motivated?
You want to know the absolute truth?
Yes.
I love my life. And I used to say it in prison, and they'd say, "You're kidding, Queen. You can't possibly be serious."
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, "What?" They'd say, "My life stopped at the gate. When
Mm-hmm.
I came into prison, my life stopped. This is not my life." I said, "The sun continued to rise, didn't it? Your heart's still beating, isn't it? Well, then you're still living your life.
Yes.
Life did not stop." Okay.
Yes.
When you're going through something very, very difficult, though, it feels like everything is for nothing. Your life has stopped. What are you going to do? You lost your hope. But you can find it as fast as you lose it. Okay. But I felt like just because I was there, or just because I've just gotten out of there, that doesn't change anything about me. You're
Mm-hmm.
not less than. You can come out having learned many things. But if you hold on to bitterness and fear, that's so crippling. It
Yes.
just cripples them.
That's true.
You can't do it. Mm-mm. So I've been asked, am I bitter? You know, aren't I angry for all of that time wasted? I say, define wasted. Well, you couldn't be out here with your family and your children. Yeah, but look how many people's children I was housed with. Okay.
Mm.
There are needs.
Yeah.
There are needs.
Would you say that you are of shed the identity of an incarcerated person at this point, because you have now, gotten back your re-entry, but that side of you in terms of the incarceration and being there, have you shed that identity?
I will never.
Hmm.
That is part of my story. We all have a story, honey.
Yes.
And that's a big piece of mine. I I talk about it, remember, laugh, share stories with my daughter, and I have taught her how to not be ashamed of where she's been and who she is. And at first, she was wondering if there are things that I just didn't want to talk about. She didn't want to bring up prison, to make me uncomfortable. I said, baby, I am not ashamed.
That's right.
I'm not ashamed of that. I said, that's part of me. And I refuse to act like it's not. I refuse.
So
So,
when you're introducing yourself, do you lead with
oh, I love this one. Do I lead with what?
what do you lead with? Have you lead with the change that you have experienced over time, your incarceration, or where you are currently in terms of your livelihood?
Well, I will give you this particular story of an older gentleman. He's a Morehouse professor
Hmm.
and had retired, and we meet in the bus station, and
Yes.
he's fascinated and wants me to tell him something about myself.
Hmm.
Okay. And I said, okay, I want complete eye contact. He
Yes.
said, okay, you got it. I said, all right. I said, less than 24 hours ago, I fulfilled, I completed a life sentence because anything over 20 years goes into a lifetime.
Right.
Okay. And I said, this is who you're talking to. He said, did I blink? I said, no, you didn't blink. He said, okay, well, he said that he had like helped with the Martin Luther King marches and the Malcolm X, and he said he has seen so much of that.
Hmm.
Great leaders incarcerated, he said, so he was all for the fight.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
said, great. Now, I don't introduce myself with it, but if anyone wants to know about,
Yes.
my my life, I know where I've been, I, if I'm going to tell it, I'm going to tell it.
Yes.
And if I don't choose to at that time for whatever reason, then I just keep it light.
Yes. You
But
know.
there are people that have just, you've been where? I said prison. Okay, 22 years, and they say, how come we can't see it on you? It's not in your voice. It's not in your face. It's not anywhere.
Yes.
I said, well, because it's not something I plan to tote around, I said, but I was there. I was there.
Wow. 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 You,
Yeah.
there's a saying that says that there's no bad press. But
Mm.
I must ask this question as well.
Ask it.
Your relationship with your own name and the
Yeah.
reputation as it evolved throughout the journey. Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure it has.
Mhm.
Now, the name that my mother gave me two names in my lifetime.
Yes.
When I was born, she named me Richelle, which I've always loved.
Yes.
She was speaking to me in her prayer tongue when I was in my early 20s, and we had went to visit her
Mhm.
when we began this journey, and she called me Shahmia,
Mm.
and that is where Shahmia comes from.
Yes.
Yes. So Both names come from my mother, one physical and the other spiritual.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I love
Isn't
the
it
name.
beautiful?
Yes, yes.
Thank
It's
you.
a beautiful name, and I've never heard anyone with that name before until you yourself. So, that is special in a sense.
Thank you.
You know,
Shahmia
mhm.
means my king in the feminine. That's what the
Okay,
name means.
I love it. A
Yes.
king in the feminine.
Hmm.
That's all.
The woman king.
The woman
Yes.
king.
Yes.
Mm.
And I adore it. And I love that it came from her.
Yes. Um, I'm wondering,
Hmm.
based on your whole experience of the incarceration itself, have
Yes.
you lobbied? Is it something that you would like to lobby or worked with legislators, you know, to reform or to look out for other persons that, as you say, there are many persons who are doing time, um, you
Yes.
know, the crime doesn't fit, the time doesn't fit the crime. Uh,
No,
yeah.
I,
Mhm,
it is such a need.
mhm,
There's such a need for justice in so many areas.
mhm.
And there are many people that have been wrongly incarcerated, something that should have been taken care of in a year, 6 months, maybe 5 years. And they're just throwing out all this time. And there are those who ask if I had ever thought of taking it back to court and suing the judicial system of Fort Myers, Florida,
Yeah.
because that's where it all happened. And
Yes.
the thought has crossed my mind,
Mhm.
and I think it would be a great idea, but I have not pursued it.
Okay. Okay. Well, speaking about legislators, well, one of the great things as well is community building.
Yes.
Have you thought about building any programs or pipeline to, to help others to follow, basically, to help them with the strength, kind of like, what you had in there, and being able to, you re-entry into society and being able to pick yourself up and do what it is that you do.
I spent so much time helping so many while I was there,
Mm-hmm.
and I helped them enter society that
Yes.
I have really not considered it for out here, though I am not against it either.
Mm-hmm.
I have spent the last 4 years helping my own and
Mm.
pulling her out of a very, very dark place that
Yes.
she fell into in my absence.
Yes.
And yes, and I have healed and loved and understood. And she thought that I would be ashamed and unforgiving about where she was in her life when I got out of prison. And this is what a lot of parents have to face, is that when they do an amount of time and then come out, the condition that their children are in.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And because you don't do time alone, everybody you love does time with you. Everybody that loves you.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially the children.
Mm.
So I gave her just like lots of love. And I said, there is nothing you could do. There's nothing you've done that I cannot forgive you for. There is just nothing. I said, everything that you could have possibly done out here, I have been surrounded with much worse.
Mm.
I said, I'm your mama. That's who I am. This is the no judgment zone.
The no judgment zone. I love that. When we talk about the legal and systemic barriers,
Yes.
we know that there is so much information, so much that we see from a day to day
Yes.
living, what happens there. In terms of legal restrictions, that which one would you say impacted you most when upon your re-entry and deciding to do what you're doing for yourself, which is like licensing, voting, housing, or travel?
Hmm.
And I
Which one affected me the
And
most?
yes, and I picked those four because they are the four that stand out when you are in terms of legal and really systemic barriers when you're made a re-entry into society. So yeah, the legal restrictions are, which ones would you say impacted you the most? Housing, travel, licensing, voting, any of those, or all four?
Uh, Housing for one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I really didn't pay much attention to what anyone else thought.
Right.
And because I was so comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
then I made other as well. But there was this one instance where Arlan, who was the older gentleman who I told you about introducing myself to, he was on speakerphone
Mm-hmm.
and he had a friend. He had very political friends, and there was a woman running for mayor, and he really wanted her to meet me.
Yes.
And he told her, Maya, that he had a friend that he wanted to introduce. She was somewhat delighted, had no problem.
Mm-hmm.
He told her I was in my 50s. She was like, oh, well, okay. And he was asking her about a job
Yes.
for me.
Yes.
But when we said that I had done some time in prison, her voice dropped like 2 octaves and said, oh, well, I've got some buses she can clean.
Uh-uh.
The whole conversation dropped. Okay.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, wow. Well, that was clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was supposed to go and meet her, and her and her partner were running a community center and giving scholarships to artists, and this and that. And they had already decided that I would not be worth their time, and that if I needed a job, that I could clean a bus.
Mm.
And there were teachers from all over the city that were meeting in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came in and I spoke, and they thought that I was their speaker, and I was not. And they were very, very friendly and warm, but any situation you face, you can change it.
That's true.
And if you can't change it, it's oftentimes not worth your time anyway. Okay.
Mm.
But the first thing you have to do is get comfortable with you, because you can't expect somebody else to give you a respect that you're not giving yourself.
That's first
So
and foremost.
if you're ashamed of you, you can't expect any more than that from anyone else.
Yes. Yes. I can just
Yes.
imagine the bureaucratic hurdles that you have faced, which is just one
Mm-hmm.
example as well. But your strength,
Yeah.
of course, speaks volume. You talk about, the housing. How
Yes.
hard was it though to secure stable housing once you were released as
Well,
well? Because I know that
that is a something.
there's a lot of housing instability that
Mhm.
actually happens when you first get your reentry as well. How was that for you?
And not just at first.
Mm-hmm.
They were advertising all of this assistance for if you had just gotten out of prison, that they had this for you in housing. And financial aid and everything, all of the numbers had been disconnected. And I mean, I looked through a lot. There was a whole thick pamphlet of information. None of the numbers were still contactable. They had all been disconnected, every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that they were advertising was long gone. Even something as small as a hotel voucher, forget it.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And you
And
can,
so you
yeah.
could get food stamps, but there was next to nothing, like
Right.
nothing available.
Mm.
So there was called living out of the car, living at first, let's see, lived out of hotels for years, for like 3 years on and off. Still living in a hotel now.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, yes.
Mm.
And lots of going here and there. Assistance from my ex-husband. He did not have much, but what he had, he has been very kind. And you just have to work with what you have.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as, I have like different perspectives of it.
Understand.
Because, yes, because for one, I'm a glamour girl and I love luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And, but on the other side, there is that which I will do what has to be done and will look at it in a very, very favorable way. There have been ones that have been very kind to me since I've gotten out,
Yes.
and I will never forget it.
You
I
know,
just,
that's one of the things I wanted to ask in terms of family
yes.
reunification. Um, how, you know, did you rebuild relationships with your family members after 2 decades apart? And, are there any relationships that couldn't be repaired at all?
Oh, sure.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And, okay, now I'm going to try to speak this carefully.
Yes.
Because sometimes strangers can treat you better than a family member.
Mm.
I I don't believe in trying to hold on to anyone that is not for me.
Hmm.
If someone is against you, I don't care if it's your blood. If
Hmm.
they're against you, you need to give that some serious distance.
Yes.
Because there are people trying so desperately to hold on to parents, sisters, brother, auntie, whoever, that have just treated them horribly. Okay.
Mm.
And they're still trying to hold on to these people in the name of family. Sometimes you need to start over and surround yourself with ones that are a positive influence and believe in you. I don't care how small the circle is. If
Mm-mm.
your circle is huge, they are not all your friend, because friends are like jewels. Okay. There's a difference between uh, somebody that you know or somebody that knows you and a friend. Friend is a very big title. And if you have a few good ones, you have jewels in your life.
That's right. Yes.
Yes.
So you would.
And so I am. Hmm?
No, no, because I was about to ask so that, I guess at this point, the definition of family, where, as you have said, like, sometimes strangers are better than family. I
Yes.
was going to ask the question, how has your definition of family evolved? And have you built a close relationship with your family? Or is it, that you have a community bond right now? Because some people have community bonds over family because of just their
No.
experiences.
Mm-mm. No. I I have a sister that lives in Denver, Colorado, and she's my last living sister,
Mm-hmm.
as I am hers. But she is a very difficult and bitter personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to leave it just like that. And not easy to get along with. Now, I reached out, we talked on the phone, long conversations. It was like the last few months of our mother's life. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was like 90 when I got out, and she did not live long after that. Um, but Angela and I cannot and will not subject myself to her bitterness. I just won't do it.
Right.
And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it before prison. I certainly wasn't going to do it afterwards. There's a thing about love, and there's a thing about a bond. Have you ever felt closer to someone who you had not even known long than you did to your own family? Has
Yeah.
that ever happened to you?
Yes. Yes, that's true. I have
Yes.
experienced it. Yes.
And it's just astounding because there can be a closeness that you've been seeking with your own family that you couldn't obtain because they were too busy trying to do you dirty. And then there's someone that you just met, and the love, the understanding, the trust, it's just there. And that's a very special gift. It just is. Just because someone is your blood does not mean you're going to be close, and does not mean you can trust them. And
Yeah.
it does not mean you should try to be close to them. Now, for all of those who have a close, good family unit, respect it and cherish it. Okay? Because that's a beautiful thing. But that does not have to be the case. And if it doesn't, life goes on.
Mm.
Okay.
You know, I must ask as well, in terms of coping strategies, how do
Yes.
you handle the triggers or moments when I would say, like, when your past feels like the present? Because I'm sure that you have experienced that since your re-entry as well. And
Mm-hmm.
are you doing self-care? What does your self-care look like? How do you
Um,
prioritize it?
okay. That's another good one, and I like that question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a little story. I was in prison. I was in confinement. I was in confinement a lot. That's a different story because I was not a rule abiding guest.
Mm,
Okay. It
mm,
just wasn't. I
right.
protested and yeah, well, but I found a lot of favor. But anyway, there was a psychologist making her rounds, and she asked me how I was doing. And I said, well, I'm great. How are you doing? She said,
Hmm.
oh, wow, well, that's refreshing in here. I said,
Yes.
thank you. She said, every time I like come by your room, you're always so positive and peaceful and happy. She
Hmm.
said, and everybody else I talk to is so miserable and complaining. She said, do you ever have a bad day? And I said, define a bad day. I said, do you mean a difficult day? She said, okay, difficult. I said, well, you know, every day isn't meant to be sweet. Some days are going to
Mm-mm.
have to hurt. I said, some days are going to have to hurt. I said, and when a day like that comes, when hurt, sorrow pays me a visit, I offer her a seat and listen to all the woes. I give it 2 minutes. She said, 2 minutes. I said, 2 minutes. That's enough. That's enough. I said, and then I have to scoot her along her way because Joy will be visiting next, and I have to prepare for her. She said, can I write that down? Can I please write that down? She said, I've never heard anything like that. I said, sure. She said, Joy will come next. I said, every time. But I would give it 2 minutes because that's enough. Enough already. Okay. Because every day is such a blessing and a gift. Every single day. And if you're so busy looking at what you don't have, you can't appreciate what you do. You can't. You have to take the gifts of that day and love it and cherish it. And every day is a brand new gift wrapped package. It truly is. And you have to make a decision of how you're going to feel.
Yes.
And yeah, she kept saying 2 minutes. I said, that's enough for a full-blown pity party. Don't pass out invitations, okay? Just give it a couple of minutes and just pour it all out, but time it.
Yes.
Because if not, you'll fall into it, and then here comes depression, and here comes hopelessness, and here comes all of these very hard, horrible emotions.
I would
Instead of
imagine.
this,
I would.
yes,
I would imagine that you have experienced or some kind of depression, anxiety, or even PTSD symptoms.
I have never experienced any of it,
None of
but
it.
I knew many girls that did. No, because that's my choice.
It's your choice.
I don't let any place or any institution or anybody tell me how I'm supposed to feel.
That's right.
No,
Yes.
no, that's forfeiting my peace.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been willing to forfeit it. Ever.
Wow. Right. Wow.
Like, I don't know if I told you the story of I was in cuffs and the officer told me I was nothing and nobody, that I wasn't even a name, that I was just a number. And that anytime she didn't know who I thought I was, but that I was nothing. And that when I received an order from an officer, it was to be yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, that I didn't have a right to say anything else. I had no rights, that I left them all at the gate. I was gracious enough to let her finish. And I asked her if she was finished. She said, yeah, I'm finished. I said, that is the single most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my life. I was in cuffs at the time. And she stepped back and looked at me.
Yeah.
And I said, first, every right I had before I came in here are the same rights I still have. I said, and I will respect you if I deem you worthy. I said, and if I don't, I will not. I said, and I've already checked the price tag on that decision, because every decision has a price tag on it. And after I got finished, she said, can I talk to you privately? I said, sure. She said, I don't want to lock you. I said, well, then don't. We had a great understanding after that. But that was her speech. You know what was the saddest thing about it?
Yeah.
All the girls that were agreeing and saying, Queen, just let her talk. Just let her talk. And I was like, you believed it. You believed it. That was the saddest thing.
Wow.
But she and I had a great understanding after that. But that's the speech she gave me. So I had a decision. Either I could accept that as a fact and fall into that, which would have made that become my truth. And I flat refused to do that because I have my own truths, and that was not one of them. Okay.
And I'm happy to hear that, because so many of us, or so many of our females, I think that at times it is that they
Yes.
allow persons to tell them who they
Yes.
are, and they are not aware of who they are, as well.
Yes.
Mhm. When you know who you
So
are, the
true.
strength that comes with that,
Yes.
not many persons are able to handle it because persons are hoping that you do not know who you are so that they could tell you who you are, teach you who they would like you to be. Well,
Yes.
this has been quite an interesting, talk and topic as well. I have three
Yeah.
remaining questions for you. And I say three
Oh,
remaining because they have been on my throughout the entire interview. These are the three questions that have stood out for me that I know that I would like to close with. What is the one thing you know about human resilience that you couldn't have understand or you couldn't have understood within your 22 years that you were there? What is that one thing you now know about human resilience that you couldn't have
hmm.
understood? I would,
Well,
if I had to guess,
I
I
could
think this the
say,
story you just told.
right? Right?
Yeah.
I could say that I understood all of this before prison, but there's no way.
Mhm.
Now I know what it feels like to be shackled
Mhm.
and chained and taken somewhere that I did not want to go. I know what it's like to go through solitary confinement, 298 days of not knowing if it was day or night.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like.
Mhm.
I know what it feels like to lose custody of my children as a mother. I know what that feels like. There are things that I had never come close to understanding of what other people had gone through. I was always a compassionate and warm and loving soul, but nothing, nothing
Nothing prepared you for that.
can
Mhm.
being in shackles and chains and solitary and all of these things
Yes.
and watching months and years. I loved at the beginning when you said not 22 days, not 22 months. I thought, ooh, preach, girl.
Yes.
But 22 years,
Yes.
okay?
Mhm.
It is amazing what we can go through. And let's just talk about as women, men too.
Yes.
But right now, I'm talking about what woman has suffered
Mm.
and still standing and still bringing forth life and love and trust
Where
and
to
all of these just great strengths.
where to be cherished.
Yes,
We talk about the re-entry and
yes.
support system, but if you had to design the perfect support system for returning citizens,
Yes.
what is like your top two things that would be on your list that
Mm.
you think, should be available right away?
Oh, I know absolutely. They must be taught to believe in themselves. Because if you don't have the respect for you, and if you don't have the belief that you're able or that you deserve a better life, if you don't have the belief in you,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to make it.
Yes.
You can't depend on somebody else to give you that.
Yes.
You must provide that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's a big one.
Yes, the big
That's a
one.
big one.
It's a big one.
And and to drop this is two.
Mm-hmm.
Drop the shame because whatever you're ashamed of, you're afraid of. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're being governed by fear, you have just broken both your legs.
Mm. I hear you. I hear you.
Those are the two.
Yes.
People think that
Yes.
it's housing
And,
or that good job or
yeah.
this, that. No, it starts within you. That's where it starts.
Hmm. You know,
So absolutely.
I love your response. I love your response. You didn't have to think about them. They just
Thank
were
you.
very fluent. Um,
Mhm.
what would you say though, give you the most hope about the future as it pertains to yourself and even the justice system? What gives you the most hope for the future?
I can't think of the future without looking at the past
Mm-hmm.
because they're both so woven into each other.
Yes.
And what I think about Dr. Empress Rose
Mm-hmm.
is how big of a price our ancestors paid for
Yes.
us to have what we have.
Yes.
I they laid the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
suffered blood, sweat, tears, death, torment, all kinds of things. Talking about being broken emotionally, what it just took for them to go outside and safely reach their destination. Okay.
Mm.
I am so proud and grateful for our ancestors
Mm-hmm.
and bless all of the assistance that they had. Okay, now we'll take that into the future
Yes.
and the present. And what is needed, what I want to see continue, is those who will stand, honor, and fight. That
Mm.
makes all the difference.
I love that. I love that. 22,
Thank you.
22 years.
Yes,
Zero.
ma'am.
22 years. Zero excuses.
Yes.
22 years inside. Forever changed outside. Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because yet I learned some things and found strength that, and I knew I was strong, but I didn't know that I was a powerhouse like that.
Mm.
But it just showed up and showed out in there. It just did. But what I hear from you, and
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank you,
Mm-hmm.
you personally,
Yeah.
for what you do,
Yes.
what you're using your voice for,
Yes.
what you're using your gift for. It's an outreach so beautiful and so strong. And
Mm.
in various places in the world, bless you. I'm so proud of you,
Mm. I thank you.
honestly.
I thank you. I mean, I really appreciate all the kind words. Where again, when I listen to, just the way it is that you have combated your isolation from being in solitary confinement, and
Yes.
still you were able to regulate your emotional side as well, where you activated your parasympathetic nervous system in terms of art, to come to reduce stress and anxiety and all of that
Yes.
as well. I look at your identity and your self-worth, where prison often reduce persons to numbers and convictions, whereas
Often. Yes.
art allows individuals to reclaim their identity as creators. I'm a creator, so I know, a
Yes.
thinker, and feeling of human being, and not just inmates. I must congratulate you on that as well. I heard you talk about build painting and doing poetry as well, and persons do not understand that, even though you may be behind bars as well, how important it is to know that you are a person, and that even the persons outside make mistakes. Some persons just get lucky, but it you are being able to construct a poem, or to do a painting, or to write a song. It provides tangible proof of your
Mhm.
capability and growth, and is so critical for your self-esteem in environments that is designed to diminish
Mhm.
you as well. And
Yes.
I am grateful for your portfolio. I'm grateful for your documentation of the art that you created inside, that has formed a portfolio that demonstrates your commitment and your skill development and personal evolution to, the person that you are today. I thank you for, coming through, and giving me the opportunity to hear you as well. I thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
Yes. So, to,
You're welcome.
to everyone who is listening, who have been counted out by the system, by society, or even by their own past, remember this episode. And remember, Queen Shemaiah will be back. Okay, go nowhere. Stay put. We'll be back to vibe out with our outro. To the listening audience, I thank you so much for tapping in with us and, staying the course, staying the course and being here today. Of course, a reminder. Here at Mass 911 Justice, we offer ample material for exploration with a focus on justice that provides a wide range of thought provoking, impactful, and relevant topics. Queen Shahmia has been nothing but short of excellence, I must say, as well. Again, for 22 years, she lived behind bars. 22 years, just remember that. And she is a testament, a living, breathing testament to what happens when resilience meets opportunities, when one woman decides that her past would not write her future as well. She has navigated the legal barriers that most would stop returning sentences cold in their tracks and just face down. She has, have done so much. She has talked about she has talked about housing instability and the quiet judgment of a world that really asks, who you have become and only what you have been. I thank you guys for really staying the course and tapping in with me today. I could not do it without you, as you know. So, catch me here next week, same time, same place. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.